Hey you guys, I'm back with another video today. It was kind of a crazy weekend. I was so tired on Friday from reading all the Rage book that I just had to go take a nap. And I never was able to take a nap, but I did kind of close my eyes a little bit. But so then this weekend, I had to deflate my pool and put it away, and had to do chores. My husband was home all weekend working in the yard, so when he's around, you gotta kind of help him, which is nice. I like being with him, and I like doing stuff with him. So, by the way, hit the subscribe button. It's down in the corner. I think one of the corners. I don't know which one. Hit the subscribe button and hit the bell if you want to know when I'm coming back on. Right now, we're gonna go with chapter 12 and chapter 13, if I can get through all that in one reading. Of the Rage book, a review of chapter 12 and 13, okay, by Bob Woodward. So, anyway, let's go. Okay, so anyway, where we left, I think, I guess Trump had met with Kim Jong-un, but before all that happened, okay, so before that happened, Rex Tillerson had flown in advance of Trump's meeting to meet with South Korea. So the U.S. South Korea commander is General Vincent Brooks, or was at the time. He's probably been fired by tweet by now. I don't know. So Trump was going to go over there, and Madison Tillerson didn't tell Trump that South Korea was trying to contribute to its own defense. So anyway, they were taking Trump to Camp Humphreys. That is a massive base in South Korea where they built like for joint forces of South Korean and American troops. So let's see here. Okay, so anyway, this base was huge, and Brooks had told Trump that the South Koreans had spent like $10 billion, dollars of their own money, and he said that they had covered 92% of the expenses, and Trump wanted to know why they didn't pay for all of it. Well, the U.S. law says that we have to pay for all the sensitive communication equipment because naturally we don't want them having that. So, yeah, that's why they didn't pay for all of it, because we didn't want them to pay for all of it. We wanted to own that part of it. So without those parameters, they probably would have owned 100% of it. So we had a bunch of Apache helicopters there, and Brooks told him that there was no greater killer. Trump wanted to know if they were any good. So then Trump met with President Moon and some of the South Korean troops, and then I think it was Brooks. He took him to this big map chart, I guess, illustrated where the composition of the forces were. And so they did that with gumballs, believe it or not. And let's see, South Korea had 62 gumballs, and the United States had 3. So each gumball represented 10,000 troops. I'm surprised Trump didn't eat one of the gumballs, because, he's not dumb. So South Korea, then Brooks told him that South Korea had spent like $460 billion of their own money over the last 15 years, and that they were getting ready to spend 13.5 more on additional arms. Then they flew to Seoul, and and as they were flying in, Trump saw the Samsung building. He's like, "What's that?" And he goes, "That's the Samsung building. This is actually called Samsung City." because it was so big and beautiful. And it accounts for about 15% of the South Korean economy. So Trump's like, wow, that's what I'm talking about. This country is so rich. This is a great infrastructure. And he goes, we're paying for all this. We're paying for all this. But and they should be paying for everything. But in reality, it's our presence that led to their wealth. Us being there. So, they're able to be a capitalist democracy because of our presence there, is what this guy told him. Trump is so stupid. And they had, this alliance that allowed them to grow. So, anyway, there's this place called Panmunjom, and this is the area that marks the border between North and South Korea. And Trump was asking, should I go there? Well, General Mattis had told Brooks, do not take him there. And but Brooks made an on-the-spot call and said, yeah, let's go. And President was like, why should I go? And Brooks told him he would look weak if he didn't go. And it was really kind of touch and go because, and the North Koreans had no idea he was going, because if that helicopter would have gone, veered just slightly into North Korea, he could have been shot down. So, let's see. But there was very, very heavy fog. And pilots were having to slow down. It was like pea soup. They didn't know he was coming. He said he got up that morning, told Melania that he may never see her again. He told her goodbye. He said, I'm not worried about myself, but if anything happens to the President of the United States, it would be the worst thing that could happen to us as a country. But Melania, I love you. I hope I get to see you again. So anyway, this fog was so bad they had to turn around. They said it was too thick, he couldn't get in. And Trump was like, he had to get in, he was worried about the coverage, the news coverage. And he thought that would make him look weak. So then they were going to wait to see if the weather broke. And Mattis was in the Beast, the limo with Trump, and apparently getting a new one reamed out. Mattis got out of the car and said he needed a new flak jacket because of all the bullshit Trump hurled at him. So the weather never cleared, and they didn't go. So then Trump later gave a big speech to the South Korean National Assembly. He was talking about the Korean miracle, which was the cultural and political and economic growth there. And he said that the South Korea had 40% times that of North Korea as far as economic, cultural, and political growth. Really low unemployment. Oh, he said in the United States it's going something of that. I said we really had really low employment. We've got the stock market going through the roof. Brilliant new Justice Gorsuch. He said, and we've got the 3 largest aircraft carriers in the world loaded to the maximum right out here. And he said we've got nuclear submarines, and they're positioned. And I guess he said 24 miles north of here is where the North Koreans abuse their people, like a prison camp. They starve them, they force labor, torture, rape, murder. It's a horrible life up there, he said. He still said, we don't seek conflict or confrontation, but we won't run from it. And that that everything rest on Kim Jong-un, that collecting these weapons won't make Kim more powerful. They make him weaker and less safe. So that's the end of chapter 12. Chapter 13, a little bit longer. There's a guy named Andy Kin that I mentioned a couple channels. He had an old back channel that he had a 20-year-old back channel into North Korea. They were continuing their testing, their nuclear testing. So following Trump's visit to South Korea, North Korea took a little turn. They said, Kim Jong-un said, that he was going to stop the preparation and escalation of his nuclear, military preparations and escalations. He said he had his mighty sword and he had everything he needed to reach wherever he needed to reach with them. So at this point, he was ready to stop doing that because he had everything in order. He didn't need to continue testing, and now he was going to. Now he wanted to focus on improving the North Korean economy. So this was a public speech, so we heard it. And apparently things were thawing out between South and North Korea. Moon Jae-in was a new left-leaning president of South Korea. He wanted closer relationships with Kim Jong-un in North Korea. So the South Korea Olympic Games were getting ready to happen, and he invited North Korea to participate, and they did. They sent a delegation of athletes. So this is telecommunications that had in the previous 2 years have been dead, and now it was reestablished. So because of this, Trump sent Pence on a tour of Asian companies, and he had a secret meeting with the North Koreans. But Pence, he mouthed off and denounced North Korea, and so they canceled his meeting. I bet Trump wasn't happy with him when he got home. But he got But stay the course. Okay, so then after the Olympics, let's see, the North Korean leaders sent this guy named Chung to visit the White House. And he wanted to brief Trump and cabinet members on Kim Jong-un's promises. So he had a meeting with the people in the cabinet members, but the next day he was going to meet with Trump, and Trump said, I'll just meet him now. He's here, let's just meet him. But there was 4 things that Kim had promised. He wanted to denuclearize. He wanted to, he's going to stop any further tests. He wanted joint military exercises between South Korea and North Korea. Oh, he said those can continue. But they didn't. They stopped. Trump stopped those. I don't know what was up with that. And that Kim was eager to meet with Trump. So then McMaster reminded Trump, he was willing to have his own uncle killed, and I think he also killed his stepbrother, and that Trump should be careful about believing him. So he told Trump, ignoring McMaster, he pointed to Chung, why don't you just go make an announcement that I'm willing to meet with him. And this isn't done. We don't have foreign dignitaries make announcements on what our president is going to do. That's not what we do. But, So that's what happened. So Trump, so they sat down. He sat down with people to make sure that Trump's announcement wasn't misrepresented by this North Korean guy. Let's see here. So they are optimistic about a diplomatic process to test for the possibility of a peaceful resolution. And no sitting American had ever met with a North Korean leader. Trump ate all this up. So at this point, there were pros and cons about this Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un, and a lot of people were like, "This is audacious, breathtaking gamble," and then there were others that were really worried that Trump had given North Carolina, I get it again. Well, I used to live in North Carolina, so that's probably why I'm doing that. They thought he gave Kim international standing and legitimacy that it had wanted for so long, and they didn't think that he should have done that because they hadn't deserved it up to now. And a lot of people were saying, what did we get out of it? You know, Kim still has his nukes. He played Moon, and now he's playing Trump. So later, Woodward asked Trump if he had given too much to Kim Jong-un, and Trump said, "You know what I did? I met with him. I didn't give him anything, but I did meet with him." So George W. Bush, I loathed Kim Jong II. Trump said that got him nowhere. Bush W. refused to meet with him, but that got him nowhere, Trump said. And in the meantime, they built this great big nuclear force. Okay, so now Tillerson had been working. Tillerson was the the Secretary of State. So he had been working the traditional ways to channel to North Korea through Sweden. And he was just using a few people on his staff. And a lot of the diplomats thought that Tillerson was heavy-handed. And some even resigned. So also it seemed like Tillerson didn't often see eye to eye with the White House position. Oh, and he had made public announcements in support of the talks, and then right after that he'd be contradicted by the White House. So that wasn't going very well for Tillerson. He said, we're ready to talk anytime they want to talk, and we will do the first meeting without a precondition. Let's just meet. We can talk about the weather or whatever. At this point, their relationship, Tillerson-Trump relationship, is fraying. And Pompeo at this point was the CIA director. And Pompeo was lying to Tillerson, and he was keeping him out of the loop. And the other thing is that the CIA seemed to be excluding China. And he actually told, Tillerson thought that China was central. And he told President Xi that he wanted China standing behind Kim Jong-un with his hand around his neck, and anytime he got out of line to give it a little squeeze. I know I'm talking metaphorically. And so the day that Tillerson was in Ethiopia, he said that he was a long way from negotiation with North Korea, and apparently Pompeo didn't hear him say that, and he said exactly the opposite, that they were going to meet with him. Okay, so and also they were the South Koreans told Trump that the North was hung up on a statement that Trump said, and that was if he came to the United States, I would accept him, but he can't expect a state dinner. Maybe a hamburger at a conference table, but he's not getting a state dinner. Okay, so back in the 2000, President Clinton was going to go to North Korea, but George Bush W. Bush had just won the election instead of Al Gore, and so Bush didn't want him to go. Because again, Bush hated Kim Jong-un, and so Clinton was then a lame duck, and he stepped back. So that was one thing that the North knew. They wanted to start with a president who was in the beginning of his tenure, not at the end, so that they would have 4 years or 8 years. They wanted to have a time to work with one guy before or woman before they left office, because they had learned from Clinton not going that it could change at any point. Okay, so a few days later, Tillerson, Secretary of State Tillerson, was in Kenya, and he was going to visit 5 African nations, and he got a call from John Kelly, and he said, "You need to come home." And Tillerson's like, "What up?" He's like, "Trump's going to fire you." And Tillerson said, "Well, okay, what's going on?" And Kelly's like, "I don't know." But he did say that he was walking to the White House, and McMaster and Nikki Haley, the UN ambassador, were coming out, and he walked in the White House, and Trump was ranting and raving about Tillerson. Never did like him. Tillerson, they had no idea why they did it. He still doesn't know why he was fired. So he came back as fast as he could. He didn't cancel any meetings with the states, but the president agreed not to fire him by a tweet or until he got back. So he came back a day early. He got in at like 4. He called Kelly and goes, "Okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to get 2 hours of sleep, and I'll be in the office at 9 or 10. Well, before that ever happened, Trump tweeted that he fired him. And he said, "Mike Pompeo is going to be our new Secretary of State, and Gina Haspel is going to be our new director of the CIA. First woman CIA director." And he was never told why he was fired, except that it was rumored that Tillerson had called Trump a fucking moron, which probably is truth. So Mattis called. Remember, they saw eye to eye and worked together. They were friends. He said he never had a better partner. Okay, so he wasn't very full of praise when he came out on the South Lawn. And he said, "Rex and I have been talking about this for a long time. We knew he was gonna, we knew he was gonna go." So then Trump called Tillerson after that, and he said, "How you doing, Rex?" Just like he did with Omarosa. He said, "I'm fine. Well, you saw how nice I was when I told everybody how wonderful you were." No, I'm not talking to him. Call you back later. Sorry. Oh yeah, this was hilarious. So then he told Tillerson. He said, "Come on back later." He said, "Go down to your ranch. You didn't want that job anyway. Go down to your ranch and then come back sometime and we'll get a picture of you and me shaking hands in the Oval Office. How about that?" And Tillerson said, "Yeah, okay." No, that ain't gonna happen. So he gave a farewell address at the State Department, and he didn't even mention Trump by name. He did say this is a very mean-spirited town, but you don't have to be a part of that. We each get to be who we want to be, and we can choose how we want to be treated, and we can choose how we treat others, which is, a sign of a decent guy. So he felt really betrayed. And also remember, we were talking about 3 promises that Tillerson asked Trump to make. He broke 2 of the 3. He I got a guy calling me and says, "Please call me." I'm not going to call him until I'm done. He said he would let Tillerson pick his own staff, and then Tillerson did, and then Trump didn't like those. And then he said he would never have a public dispute, which he did, and he would never pull Trump's nomination, which he didn't do. So 2 of the 3, he can't be trusted. He makes a promise. A promise by Trump means nothing. So then, as secretary, the first thing Trump wanted Pompeo to do was go to North Korea and meet with Kim Jong-un on his behalf. So then Easter weekend 2018, Pompeo went to North Korea. Again, talking about Kim Jong-chol is generally thought to be number 2. But they couldn't really tell because such a dominant number 1. But anyway, he told Pompeo, still there were 4 promises: willing to meet with Trump, intends to denuclearize, he's going to accept the military exercises between U.S. and South Korea, and he will abstain from testing. Those are the 4 promises. And Pompeo said he wanted to hear it from Kim Jong-un directly. And then Kim Jong-chol said, "I'll let you know when and if Kim Jong-un will meet with you." And now, immediately, he was able to meet. He was ready to meet with him. And they could only take 2 people. So, okay, so then they were driven to this regular looking office building, and they drove in, I guess, in through a parking garage or whatever. And he said it was a fortress inside with all kinds of guards. It was a fortress concealed inside. Regular looking office building. Lots of guards. And so Kim was sitting on one side of in the conference room, one side of the table, and Andy Kim and Mike Pompeo sat down, and Kim told them that he was very, very close to war. And then, so they wanted to know why he was wanting to denuclearize, and Kim Jong-un said, I have children, and I don't want them to be carrying nukes on their back the rest of their lives. Okay, so right after Pompeo left, three, I think, U.S. prisoners, three Americans, Tony Kim, Kim Hak-song, and Kim Dong-chul were released and returned to the United States. Then Trump comes out, we want to thank Kim Jong-un. He's really a great guy. That's the end of 13. I got to make a phone call. I'll be back in a little while. Hit the subscribe button down there where it says Queens Avenue. Please subscribe. I think it's in the corner.